Well, we have correspondents covering this story from the US and Iran. Tohid Asadi is live in Tehran. But first, let's go to our White House correspondent, Kimberly Halket. She joins us live from Washington, D.C. So listening to the statement by Marco Rubio, sounds like the US is going into these talks with quite a long shopping list or wish list, right?
That's absolutely right. And it has a lot to do with a meeting that occurred on Tuesday between Steve Witkoff, the Middle East envoy, and the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Well, the United States had its own goals. What we've learned is that Israel has its own goals to come out of this meeting as well. In fact, what we're hearing is that it's really being referred to as a maximalist strategy. And the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, speaking to reporters on Wednesday in Washington, outlined what that looks like. Take a listen.
I think in order for talks to actually lead to something meaningful, they will have to include certain things. And that includes the range of their ballistic missiles. That includes their sponsorship of terrorist organizations across the region. That includes the nuclear program, and that includes the treatment of their own people. As far as the talks are concerned, I think the Iranians had agreed to a certain format. For whatever reason, it's changed in their system or what have you. We'll see if we can get back to the right place. But the United States is prepared to meet with them. I think it was scheduled for Friday. Steve is ready to go. He'll be prepared for that. If the Iranians want to meet, we're ready. They've expressed an interest in meeting and talking. If they change their mind, we're fine with that too. We prefer to meet and talk. I'm not sure you can reach a deal with these guys, but we're going to try to find out. We don't see there's any harm in trying to figure out there's something that can be done. This is a president that always prefers a peaceful outcome to any conflict or any challenge.
Tohid, have we seen any sign that the Iranians want to discuss such a long list of demands, from the treatment of the Iranian people to rockets to support for Iranian allies and so on?
From what I can say, Sami, the Iranian rhetoric when we speak to the diplomatic sources here in Tehran is that they prefer to untangle the knots one by one rather than going into a trajectory of comprehensive conversation about all these controversial issues, some of which Iran says is not ready to put on the table of negotiations. For instance, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi time and again has said that Tehran is not going to negotiate when it comes to defense capabilities or ballistic missiles, something that is remaining controversial between the two sides. What we hear from Tehran is that they are ready for talks, and there is this cautious openness that we have been witnessing over the past few days, particularly after the major military buildup in the West Asia by the United States. Tehran is saying that it's ready while the fingers are on triggers about the possibility of confrontational scenarios. It is also ready for get engaged in negotiations. But when it comes to the topical domain of the talks, Tehran has been saying that it is ready to engage in talks limited to the nuclear program of the country. And on that, while we hear some statements from the American officials, that is putting a shadow over the possibility of talks that we are expecting to see on Friday in Muscat.
Kimberly, what does the tone of Marco Rubio there tell us about the appetite for making a deal and how much consensus there is within the Trump administration, within the MAGA camp?
Well, what it tells us is that the United States doesn't have unlimited patience. In other words, what we can take from the statements made by Marco Rubio or the U.S. president on Tuesday is that the military option and the possibility that things could escalate is still very real. In fact, the U.S. president addressed this when he spoke to reporters on Tuesday. He said that he wants to try and make a deal, but if Iran doesn't make a deal, bad things will happen. He sort of intimated that, again, there is that carrier strike group that is in close proximity to Iran, and that is something that could be sort of utilized at any moment. Now, having said that, the Secretary of State did say to reporters that the United States doesn't view its participation in these talks in any way as being a concession to any of the demands of Iran. Instead, what they're saying is that they believe that Donald Trump has expressed, whether it's Iran or any other adversary or ally, a willingness to speak. And this is merely being looked at in the United States as an opportunity to engage directly with Iran.
Tohid, talk us through the change in venue of these talks from Turkey to Oman.
Well, I think from the Iranian perspective, the key point of concern is not just necessarily the venue of the talks, but the very quality and nature of negotiations between the two sides. Up until the moment, what we have witnessed is a sort of, I can say when it comes to Iran's posture, is an indicative of a sort of eagerness, a sort of willingness in a cautious way to diplomacy with the United States, but whether or not this is a possibility to be actualized remains to be seen, specifically seeing the controversies not just about the location of the talks, but also about the topical domain of the talks, as I explained earlier, and also this cloud of mistrust that exists there. And that is something that we hear from time to time when it comes to the political rhetoric here. And they're saying, Tehran is saying that while the country was in the middle of a negotiation with the United States, all of a sudden it was attacked by the Israelis and later by the Americans. So they are getting prepared for a wide spectrum of scenarios down the road, even when it comes to the confrontational scenarios. We see these statements coming from Tehran that there is a full preparedness for that. Whether or not diplomacy could pave the way for a solution between Iran and the United States remains to be seen, while regional players are also important here. On that, Iran said that it is appreciative of regional engagements and it's continuing its cooperation and collaboration, not just with the regional players, but also with its international partners and allies. The deputy foreign minister of the country, Qasem Ghalibabadi, went to Beijing today to have consultation with Chinese officials. The secretary for the Supreme National Security Council of the country was in Moscow a couple of days ago. So all in all, there is this tendency for diplomatic engagement, whether in Moscow or elsewhere. And from Tehran perspective, the ball is going to be in the court of the United States, whether they come with their maximalist demand or from the Iranian, let's say, literature, I can say, with a fair, equitable approach towards the possibility of negotiations.
All right, thanks so much, Tohid Asadi and Kimberly Halket.
Don't miss out. Get the full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable news and expert insights. Like, share, stay ahead.